1. Buckle up for a long tale. It's a Thursday night at a seaside restaurant near the end of the summer. Not hectic, but pretty busy. I'm manning the bar out in our beer garden, making some cocktails, taking orders, the usual nightly fare. I notice a couple of kids that don't seem to have parents in the garden, so I'm keeping tabs on what they're up to. One of my co-workers comes out and lets me know that these kids do actually have parents, but they're inside being difficult and won't supervise their kids. All good. I'm usually the one to have a hard word with people. I'll just let them know that kids can't be out the back without parents. Why is this, you may ask? Well, that would be due to the wide-open gate that backs out into our parking lot, in which people often fly through, the occasional drunken party that can get rowdy, and the plain and simple fact that servers are not babysitters. As soon as I catch these kids running up the walkway, another hazard, as this is how servers get food out the back, I let them know, politely of course, that without their parents they can't be back here. If it wasn't for the list of drinks I was amassing, I'd have gone inside to let their parents know too. As it was, I figured that probably freaked them out enough. Until I notice a kid, maybe 3 or 4, just wandering the garden. However, she's with another young girl who I know is with a family dining right outside my bar. And so begins my customer interactions. I go to speak to the reasonable mother. "Hey, I'm just checking, but do you know this child?" No, thanks for asking. She's okay with my daughter, though." So I figure, cool, I'll smash some drinks out, keep an eye on the kids, and return the little one, once I've got my orders under control. But then they're both just gone. I know they haven't gone out the walkway, so I leave a junior staff member at the bar to take orders but not make them, and hightail it to the gate. Lo and behold, there they are, playing around the bins which are right on the edge of the roadside. Right after me comes reasonable mother, and she is onto her kid, letting her know exactly how dangerous this was for her. At this point, I'm pretty pissed. I've been watching this kid for at least 10 minutes and no parent or sibling has come out to even check on her. So I ask her to take me to her mummy, because boy do I have some choice words for her. And this is where I fuck up. I march into that restaurant and find insane mother, and I'm not thinking about the proper way of doing this. "Excuse me, but do you know where I found your daughter?" "She was in the backyard." "Actually, she was in the parking lot. We don't have the facilities here to keep track of your children, so you really need to either supervise them or keep them within the restaurant with you. Please don't let this happen again." I leave, realizing I fucked up. I should have taken her aside, because even my softest voice is at best very loud and very carrying. The whole restaurant may well have heard me. And she sure thought so, because 2 minutes later she's in the backyard. She looks worried as hell, so I figure maybe she thought her kid was still out there. There was a lot spread out across the restaurant, so being the considerate server I am, I go up to reassure her I returned her daughter. And that's where I got it. "You had no right to yell at me inside the restaurant. You should have taken me aside and let me know." "Your child was in a parking lot. I do admit that I could have handled it better, but we really can't be looking out for your children." "I don't care. You had no right. It was incredibly rude." I said I'm sorry, but your child was literally on the road. I watched her out here for 10 minutes. It was really dangerous. "You should have taken me aside." I think at this point you get the gist. And hey, maybe she was freaked out realizing how much danger her kid was in. And it probably was pretty embarrassing to think the whole restaurant was judging you. And so she had to take it out on me, but if you're more worried about strangers judging you than your actual child potentially being harmed or lost, your priorities are well out of order. After a bit of this, she heads back inside, and I'm just left there shaking both in anger and stress. Luckily, not all customers are lunatics. Reasonable mother actually went inside to let my boss know how well I handled it, and how grateful she was that I was keeping an eye on the kids. And so ends my tale. I suffered absolutely no consequences. My boss only said I ought to take people aside for that sort of thing, which I had kind of figured out for myself at that point, and my co-workers thought it was both hilarious and horrifying. Insane mother never complained to my boss, nor left a bad review, although I'm not sure what she could have written. "Rude waitress rescued my child from the roadside and told me to be a responsible mother." I don't know, doesn't seem too likely. I hope you all enjoyed that rather dramatic encounter. I'll be milking that story till the day I die. 2. I have so many stories of the same guy who we only know as Soljamon. Soljamon, or as he referred to himself, I'm Black Irish. He was not black nor Irish, and yes, I know what that actually means. He was about 5'2", and also would say he was from the island. He did have a very strong Caribbean accent, but who knows what island. He came into the small music venue, mainly punk and metal, that I worked at every single Friday and Saturday like clockwork. He tipped super well and was usually nice to the staff, but the second he walked in, the clock started until he would have to be cut off and kicked out. It was always fairly harmless, and depending on the right crowd was hilarious to watch, so we never banned him, but more often than not he would piss off someone, usually the band, and we would have to remove him. I will try to list as many examples as I can remember. He would always stand as close to the lead singer as he possibly could without being on the small stage, and continually gyrate his hips directly at them the entire set. The stamina alone was impressive, but definitely awkward when there's only 6 people in the venue. He would constantly yell at the band the entire time, usually compliments, sometimes complete gibberish, guttural sounds. He would repeat the same lines over and over. His favorites were, we love you, soldier, soldier, soldier." Can you guess how we named him? "You're sexy, sexy, you're sexy." It did not matter who was on stage or performing for that one, sometimes when no one was performing. One specific time, there was a very mellow acoustic show of acts from the local college. One girl was playing acoustic guitar, and he was really going for it that night for some reason, and after she finished her song, it's silent in the place with a crowd of maybe 10 to 20 people when he yells, "You play good!" To which the crowd started clapping and agreeing. Realizing he had agreement and the crowd's attention, he had to add to it now, so he finished with, "For a woman." He truly meant it as a compliment, even though it was hilariously wrong. That one still cracks me up from the collective sighing gasps from the entire bar. One of the times I personally told him he was cut off and had to leave, he flipped me off with both hands and put them up to his sides in Zoidberg style, sideways scooted to the door, still with both middle fingers up, and then, as the bar went silent, he yelled straight at me, "Eh, you're a dick, but I love you." He then left. He would never finish more than half a beer before rushing to get another, and would always tip and then put a finger to his mouth like, "Shh," and then tip more. I didn't understand the ritual, but I also didn't care. He would regularly say things about being a cop or something about the FBI. Could never really make that one out, but he would say something about either and then giggle like a schoolgirl. Pretty sure he had learned the words, but not what they actually meant. After we would kick him out, he would walk out front and do the loudest whistle and wave for non-existent cabs, and then stand there until one went to drive by, when he would promptly run out in front of the cab and try to get a ride. Shockingly enough, this was effective about 50% of the time. 3. This happened in the last few months of the lockdown in Australia last year. When people were able to dine in at restaurants, provided they gave names and contact details for contact tracing purposes, in the event of a COVID case arising, this information was destroyed after 28 days. For the most part, everyone was compliant, but you'd occasionally have a family or person who did have a problem. I was a front-of-house manager, and had just handed in my 2 weeks' notice, with it being 2 days from my last day, so my care level was below the ground. Here is a conversation I had with a lady who refused to sign in. "Awesome, now are we dining in or takeaway?" "Dining in, please." "Excellent. I'll just have to get you to sign in to the government-mandated COVID tracing form before you sit down." "Can I refuse signing that?" "You can, but unfortunately you can't dine in our restaurant as it's a liability and we can get fined. You'll have to take it back home or to a park or something." Her family is already setting up on a table outside.
Well, this COVID thing isn't even real. This isn't the law.
I respect your beliefs, but this is the law, unfortunately, and we have to oblige to it.
Well, fine, we'll get takeaway.
Pays for food. Excellent. I'm going to have to ask you and your family to remove your belongings from our table and wait in our designated takeaway spot.
Sure.
She proceeds to go and sit down at the table. I wait a couple minutes because, sure, maybe they're packing up. But then everyone else sits down, so I go out to tell them, sorry guys, because you refuse to sign in, you have to remove yourself from our dining area.
We are, though. Give us some time.
Okay, well, you've been sitting down here for a bit now, and I told you before you sat down, so please get up so I can seat some other people.
This is absolutely ridiculous. There's no need to be so rude.
I'm not being rude. I'm asking you to oblige to our store's rules due to COVID.
You're being rude to us right now. Do you want me to take my business somewhere else? Do you want us to leave?
Yeah, sure, I'll refund you right now. I step towards the point-of-sale system with the full intent of refunding her.
What? No, my kids are hungry. Don't!
I shrugged at her, and I think she got the point, because almost immediately they moved into the takeaway area. I still find it pretty funny that as soon as I obliged to her threat, she did a 180 and complied. 4. Don't you just love it when the customers scream in your face? One weekend, when everything looked like it was falling apart, and I mean literally, the hot water machine stopped working, so we had to bring in 3 kettles that we boiled water in, and needed to remember to refill. Imagine a busy weekend in a supermarket, full of British people, and the hot water machine is not working. Absolute chaos. The moment the water ran out, it was as though they would die. All they kept going on about was, "Oh, I can't make me tea. I might as well have gone home." Well, go on home, Karen. What do I care? Of course you joke and say, "Ha ha," and hold a placid smile like your life depends on it. The amount of trips I did to fill the kettles that day, oh my goodness. It was probably about 2 to 3 p.m., peak shopping time when people are queuing up for food, and you guessed it, tea. And as this long queue was only getting longer, someone scalded their hand. There was a sign to be careful. I'm sorry, who holds their cup to pour the hot water from the boiling kettle? And who in their right mind thinks, oh, the second it's finished boiling, I'll pour the water? Are you dumb? Water is still bubbling and boiling. Even by the last second, you have to wait. But no one can be patient for their damn tea. You'll still bloody drink it, won't you, you tosspot? And then the queue was starting to talk about this woman, and I was saying that there was a sign, and they were asking what they could order and what not. It went on while all chit-chatting about tea, how someone could be dumb to burn their hand, and how are they not familiar with basic tea etiquette? What's wrong with them? As they speak among themselves, one man says,
"You gonna serve as a what?"
Cue surprised Pikachu face. Yes. I would if I was actually able to speak to the woman I'm serving without being interrupted by your questions and your damn talk about tea. Placid smile, like a mantra. There was this man he had something against. Because when it came to his turn, I say we don't have sweet potato chips, as he regularly orders this. But oh, how the hailstones came and hailed. This man just went on a rampage. How can't you have these chips and not have your hot water machine working? What else isn't working in there? Don't you have my asparagus for my side dish? Just went on and on, shouting in my face. You gotta love customer service. You know what I did? I just looked at him and did a 180 into the kitchen, told my colleague to handle him, and walked right into the storage freezer. Usually, the best part of my job was telling people that we don't have a certain something, forcing them to try something new, but he was not having it. I walked into the freezer because my eyes were sweating, and I walked out of there 2 minutes later like a fresh baby out the bath. Absolutely glorious day. Gave in my letter of resignation maybe 2-3 weeks later. 5. We're in our second lockdown in my state, doing the carry-out delivery dance once again. For Uber Eats, Postmates, and DoorDash, each platform has its own tablet that chimes when someone is ordered from us that we accept, and enter on our own point-of-sale platform. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with this setup, since it's turned most of us into Pavlovian dogs. Last night, an Uber Eats order chimed for an order with a burger and a wrap, and their respective sides. This order displayed no modifications or notes, so I enter it and send it on its way to the kitchen. Let it be known that the wrap that was on the order contains blue cheese dressing. So the order comes out 15 minutes later. I bag it and I store it in our hotbox, where it sits for another 10 minutes after I'd marked the order as ready on the Uber Eats tablet. A driver arrives to pick it up, as they often do, and as I'm handing the order to the driver shows me his phone. Apparently, the customer for this order had messaged the driver, "Please make sure there's no blue cheese on the wrap." Now I have an obligation to tell the driver that indeed there is blue cheese in the wrap, to which he replies, "Well, can you remake it? How long will it take?" I've already made up my mind. I tell the driver that if this customer wants his wrap with no blue cheese, he'll have to order another one. The driver then goes, "Let me call the customer," and relays that information to him. Now the customer wants to talk to me, and the driver hands his phone over to me. In hindsight, I shouldn't have taken it. I should have made the customer call the restaurant because COVID. But I did take this man's phone. Customer says,
Hey, is there any way to get another wrap with no blue cheese?
And I tell him that he can, but he just has to order another one. He then says,
What about my refund? Can I get a credit for the first order?
And I told him that's between you and Uber Eats, and I explained to him that the delivery service is a third party. He then goes on to tell me that the app didn't give him a choice to say no blue cheese, which I know for a fact is not true at all, and I go on to say to him this, "Okay, I'm looking at the app right now on my phone, and I've selected the buffalo chicken wrap. Not only are there options to omit every item, but there is a text box at the bottom reserved for notes where you could have written no blue cheese, and that would have made sense. But I'm looking at your order and there are no modifications. I mean, you could have called us, but instead you waited until the last moment to ask the delivery driver about something you never specified. Now look, I'm sorry, but it is what it is, and this food has been prepared, and this is how it's going out. If you want the wrap you want, you're going to have to order it again and specify what you want before it gets made." Anyway, the customer mumbles something about ordering again, and I hand the phone back to the driver, who's like, "What should I do now?" Well, the customer didn't cancel it yet, so I would send it anyway, business as usual. And if he does cancel it, you can eat it. The driver shakes his head and goes, "Some people, man." The kid didn't reorder, and I honestly feel bad for him, but let's chalk this up to experience here. Use your brain, dude. Of the people responsible for making your food correctly, do you consult the guy who drives it from point A to point B? Or the restaurant you ordered it from, with a skilled team of culinary professionals at the helm? And of the times it's appropriate to request a modification on your order, should you make that request before it's made or after it's made, packaged, and handed off? Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, episode 128. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I'm a grumpy freezer today because I got a call yesterday, and I knew this was coming, saying that they were coming to make some, let's call them improvements, to the water pipes and everything outside the house. They're doing it to all the houses. That's fair enough. I knew they were coming. I had been assured, however, they would not need access inside my home. I got a letter today, hanging out of the letterbox, saying that they would need access to my home, and they could take up to 5 days, and at some point during that time, they'll need access to my kitchen so they can replace the stop cock in the kitchen, which I'm not happy about, because not only one have they given me very little notice of it, they start on the 22nd, I don't know at what point they're going to need access. They apparently start at 8 a.m. and I don't know what time in the day or on what day it'll have to be. So basically, if they want access to my house, they can phone me. Because I know one of them's got my number, because the woman that phoned me to let me know, perfectly pleasant lassie, no trouble there. If they need access, they can give me a phone call, because I won't be answering the door before then. Not to mention the fact I just don't want strangers in my house. I didn't want strangers in my house before COVID. I sure as hell don't want them now. Definitely not my kitchen, which of course, when they're done, will have to be fully scrubbed down. I'll also have to be fully scrubbed down before they arrive so it looks presentable, so they think it's always that tidy, but okay, that's enough grumbles, I think. There may possibly be a stream later. We'll see if I'm in the mood. I mean, I'm definitely planning on doing one, but we'll see what happens. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.